Welcome back to the channel, fellow aviators. In this episode, we are going to change what we have been doing over the last 16 episodes. We are going to leave career mode behind, and instead, we are going to begin flying for an airline on a regularly scheduled route. But before we get started, now comes the time for my shameless plug. Please leave a like, subscribe, and comment if you like what you see and if you find these videos useful. It really helps out a small content creator like myself. And the friend of the channel remains Cartech, who consistently puts out exceptionally great Farming Simulator 25 content. Okay, let's get started. So one of the issues I touched on last episode was while I really enjoy the economy for both this and NeoFly, which if you guys haven't seen, I've just started a brand new series on that. I'll leave a link in the top right corner. Is I really enjoy the economic aspect in terms of providing a little bit more realism. You won't get a $3.5 million payout flying a 172 for 17 minutes like you will in the Microsoft Flight Simulator base career mode. But the downside actually becomes, because it's a little bit more realistic, and I think the rules here on OnAir are not structured exactly the best way, you end up with a lot of fees. You know, you've got an aircraft administration fee, you've got an insurance fee. The payouts are a little bit more realistic. You have to run an employee, and the game can begin to slightly morph into almost like a tycoon game. We never even got into, at least in this playthrough, opening up our own FBO, starting new industries, all things we can do with OnAir, and I'm sure we'll cover that at a later point. But you start moving away from actually doing a lot of flying. And on top of which, as we kind of touched on, if you're not flying every single day, sometimes the financial disincentive is just too great to deal with. And so we are going to now switch it over a little bit and get involved in more just kind of actual flying. Okay, so how do we choose an airline? Well, it's pretty simple. We're going to go over to Freelance Jobs dashboard over on the left-hand side. We'll click there. Then it'll bring up a couple more tiles. And what we're looking for here is in the upper right where it says regular routes, we're going to apply for a route. And from here on the left-hand side, you see a listing of a lot of different airlines. We can scroll through. Words again are hard this time of the morning without my coffee. But we can scroll through here and we can see literally almost every airline is represented doing whatever you would like to do. Flying in any kind of route structure, we can clip. Let's just check here on Jazeera. We can come up here. Let's check Delta. See if I can spell. We'll hit Search Airlines. Delta Airlines. It'll go ahead and build up the route structure. As you see here, we have the Delta Airlines route structure. Now, is it 100% accurate? No. Atlanta has way more flights. It's their major hub in America. But it does give you a general sense of what you can do. My airline, once again, a lot of the flights are missing, but most of them are there. So you can choose pretty much any airline to fly for. So which airline should you fly for, and who did I choose? Well, it obviously depends on your preferences. So let's say you would like to fly the PMDG 777. I don't know why anyone would want to fly a Boeing, but let's say that's what you want to do. Then choose an airline, let's say like Delta or maybe Virgin, that has long international routes. Do not choose Cape Air, which tends to fly around in the Caribbean and in North America doing very short haul Cessna 414 routes. So choose an airline and a flying style that you like. I chose, let's come up over here to, I'll put my search in. I chose Logan out of the United Kingdom. And if we look at the route structure, you see, I would like to continue to fly, probably not in the A320 yet, but some of the smaller aircraft. And last week, if you guys remember, I put a poll up on which aircraft should we choose next. And I can now reveal the exclusive results It was a tie between the ATR 7242 and any study level aircraft. Actual vote count was 1 vote for the ATR by yours truly and 1 vote for the study level aircraft. So a total of 2 votes. So we are going to do what the subscribers want. So we are going to choose a study level aircraft. And so I've chosen Loganair. That is their route structure. And you can come up here on the right-hand side and choose any starting airport. It builds up, it knows what Loganair's hubs are. We'll just kind of choose any. Down below, you see flight count. That is how many flights you need to complete in a week to get your bonus. Below that, pretty obvious, route length from 100 miles up to 500 miles. And then below that, you see it says generate a schedule for the Airbus A320. That's just because obviously OnAir recognizes that Airbus is a superior product and no one wants to fly the 73s. Kidding, but not really. Or you can just load the aircraft you want to use in the simulator. Now look, if you like to fly the 172 or the 152, if you try to put in a Delta schedule, it's not going to be able to work it out for you, right? So you need to fly something that it's capable of doing. And as you see with these flights, so even though the aircraft I chose isn't used by Loganair, the flights are the kind of same parameters, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to generate a schedule for the aircraft in the sim since I've already loaded in. So you see it's generated 5 flights for me to accomplish. We'll start in Manchester, then we'll go to Dice, from Dice to Sundberg, from Sundberg to Edinburgh, from Edinburgh to St. Magan, and then St. Magan to Manchester. I'm sure I butchered all those names for all my English friends. They're all in teal blue, which means they've been assigned, but I have not completed them yet. And you see below there, we have it, how long the duration is, how many nautical miles, what the pay is going to be. So all I'm going to do is come over here and accept this schedule. Okay, now we're back in that freelance start page. On the regular routes, you see under Loganair, 0 of 200. That's how many experience points we have. And beneath that, you see our rank, which is trainee. And below that says pay bonus, 0. So how this works is every flight you complete, you receive 10 experience points. If you complete all the required flights within the prescribed time period, within a week, so I've chosen 5 within a week, I will receive an additional 10 experience points, so a total of 20. So at the conclusion of this week, I should have 100 out of 200. And why is this important? Well, at the trainee level, I get no pay increase. But once I move up to the next level, which I think is first officer, don't quote me, but I know the pay bonus goes up to 200% and goes up 100% each additional rank, where it tops out at like rank 5, which is captain, at 500%. So 5 times. So right now, you can see just for this leg, I'm scheduled to receive 2240. If I was the next rank up, it would be close to 4,500. So it's definitely worth sticking with an airline, at least for a while, until you completely rank up. As it's a great way to earn money because we won't have any expenses. In freelance mode, the airline will pay for our fuel, because can you imagine if you chose a 747 trying to fuel that sucker up? And it won't pay, and you don't have to pay for any maintenance. So everything we're going to get is going to be pure profit. And as you can see, at 5 times, if we ranked all the way up to captain, we would get over close to 11,000 just for this flight alone. So I think it's definitely an interesting way potentially either to start your career or enhance it by generating some extra cash. All right, so we can start it right there at the start button, but let's just assume for whatever reason you've chosen your flights, you get called out, and you can't do it. How can we restart our flights? Well, we can come back to the main dashboard. And once again, we can, on the left-hand side, we can choose that dashboard, which will bring us up to the same menu, or you can come to the aircraft, and you will now see which aircraft I chose, because as you see here, it's loaded up. The Beechcraft Piston Duke is loaded up in green, and that will disappear. And you see right next to it says freelance. That will disappear once I complete all 5 jobs, right? And then we can just launch it once again, how we've always done, by clicking on the small little airplane. We come to here. We make any adjustments if we need to for fuel. Once again, it's free. We'll validate the fuel and the payload, track it, and then we're off and running like we have before. So let's go ahead and do that. I will meet you out at the airport, and we will talk about the Beechcraft Duke that I have chosen to fly. See you in a second. Okay, welcome to Manchester Airport. This is the Grand Duke. It comes in 3 varieties, the Duke, the Grand Duke, and the Turban Duke. It is not native to Microsoft 2024, but with the new update, it is fully capable of actually flying in 2024 with no problem. Since it's loud as hell, let's hop into the aircraft. All right, so I chose the Duke because it is, without a doubt, the most realistic aircraft you can currently get, 2020 or 2024. There's a couple others that are great aircraft. We may actually fly them, like the Chancellor that was at the 414, the Cessna 310. But I think this is an outstanding way to start. Everything in this aircraft has been modeled. Everything from the friction on the needles to engine, pneumatics, electronics. If you don't have the temperature set right in the cabin, it will alert to you. If you don't do the pressurization correctly, you'll get hypoxia. Everything is modeled. It can be a bit intimidating going through all of this. And we're going to learn this together. As I mentioned before, and I think in a previous video, one of the weaknesses or one of the omissions in my resume is my twin engine time. I went straight from the helicopter straight to the regionals. I was hired to fly the Dash 8, but by the time I got to class, they decided to cancel that and just go straight jet. So I went straight to the 145. So I only have about 50 hours in piston aircraft. Matter of fact, I don't even have a single engine commercial rating. I just have my multi-engine commercial because I needed to get a couple more hours and to be qualified to go to the regionals. And so I hopped into a multi-engine, I think it was a Tecnam, knocked out about 20 hours or so, took my check ride, and then, I don't know, 2 weeks later, I was in the airline. So I really enjoy the multi-engine, the piston stuff. And I think doing it the way we're doing it now, with being able to freelance our jobs, we're going to be able to learn this aircraft together. When we all feel like we're ready to move on, then we can choose something different. We can choose, like I said, the 414 or the 310, or maybe something will be native that will come out for Microsoft 2024. So one of the things, this is not an overly complicated startup, but it can be quite difficult to actually do correctly. So I just want to take a couple minutes real quickly just to kind of look at, this is the included tablet interface. Obviously the Microsoft or the Asobo EFB is still functions in this aircraft, but this is the one that comes with the Blacksquare Duke. And you can see, you can choose whatever kind of like the avionics you want to run with. I'm using the GTN 750 because I paid and subscribed to the, was that the PMS 50, because I'm using it in another aircraft. But you can choose the 530, 430. You can choose all sorts of different combinations. You see that here. Payload, you can customize the payload. You can do everything from nose baggage, fuel, passenger weights, left and right engine, the electrical system, cabin. This is where you see kind of in the bottom right here, the pulse oximeter. If you go up to altitude and don't set it correctly, you will start getting alert. If the temperature is too warm, too cold, you will get alert. They modeled, I don't know if we can see it here. Let me just pop out to this view, turn off. I don't think it's even open yet, but there's a little valve that opens up when you open up the ram air inlet. They modeled that. So everything is modeled on this aircraft to an insane degree of realism. It can be a little bit overwhelming. So we're going to take this in little chunks as well. We're not going to try to figure out how to fly this aircraft all in this episode. One of the hardest things to do, quite frankly, is maybe start it. The procedure's not difficult, but it starts realistically. So the very first thing we're going to want to do is, let me just choose a different view here. I think they should all be mapped. Let's go ahead and take out our control pins. Make sure all of our prop, mixture, everything is working like we would expect it to. Excellent. And we'll come over here. And from here, like I said, it's a fairly simple startup process. First thing we want to do is just turn the battery on. Once again, yes, they did model the battery. Let's come over to left engine 1, and you can see battery capacity. They modeled it even to the fact that if you try to start this aircraft at night with the lights on, the lights will dim because the volts have dropped. So, like I said, I think the manual is 160 pages long. So clearly they went all out in getting this thing modeled. So let's get rid of that for now, just to make our life a little bit easier. We've got the battery on. We can go ahead and turn our rotating beacon on. And then we want to come down to check out let's just see if I can drag this a little bit lower so we can see it at the same time. We'll just move that over here. Very first thing we want to do is do a pre-oiler. So we'll start up the left engine first. So we'll hit, and if you look down at the oil pump and the pre-oiler, the brown oil is coming up into the hub. The color of the oil changes based off its viscosity. So we want to leave it up there for about 10 seconds. You don't have to leave this on here. It just kind of helps visualize, and that's why I'm leaving it here. The next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to put our mixtures forward, our props forward, and then we'll choose our left throttle forward. And now we are going to put on the boost pumps. And now we can see the fuel enter into the engine, enters into the cylinders, and just right about there. You don't want to put too much. You can actually flood the engine, right? And there's a difference between starting this engine if it's cold, warm, hot, right? If it's cold, you may have to use the included propane heater. Crazy. So let's just come over here. We'll move this. And now I did want to kind of point this out. I'm using the Alpha and the Bravo throttle quadrants, and you can see here that when I move these switches, they are both moving together. Obviously, we don't want that for the start. So I actually left it here, but for the actual start, for the left and right, I was able to map out different combinations. So let's go ahead and see if we can get this started. So we'll just crack the throttle a little bit, and then we'll just that started up perfectly. And now, if we could just remove this, we want about 1,000 on the RPM because they have actually modeled carbon buildup in the plugs, right? Crazy. All right, and so we're going to do the exact same procedure for on the right-hand side. We'll come back over here. We will put the oiler on. Oops, go back to right there. Wait till that right fills into the hub. Perfect. We can turn the oiler off. We will bring the right throttle full forward, then right boost pump on. Wait till we get a little bit of fuel into the actual cylinders. That's about right. Turn that off. And now, since I've mapped it, and let's turn that off so I can kind of see. Let's go pause. And then I can, if I forgot to, there we go. Okay, let's bring that down. Bring that down. Okay, so once we've got that done, we go ahead and pause this again. We can get rid of this by dragging it down, or I'm sorry, not dragging, we just kind of click right there and it puts that away. And then from here, we'll go ahead and put on our inverters, avionics master, Gen 1, Gen 2. And now we can just wait for our flight plan to load in. I went on SimBrief and loaded up a flight plan. I was thinking about maybe connecting it to Beyond ATC this morning. But I think I'm just going to, it's a lot of things going on right now. So let's see if we can go ahead and just make it through it. Actually, look at this. Right in the upper right hand, I'm going to circle that right there. You see that red light? That is telling us that the cockpit temperature is too low. So we can open up the window a little bit, get some more flow in here, and we can come down to pull on our air inlet, and we can turn on our blower. And that's just not open yet. Okay, very good. All right, and then that actually, if we want, let's go back here just so I can show you. And here is cabin, and you can see the temperature in here is warm. So we can do a couple things. We can start to try to cool it down, and we'll go to manual cool. Also, we're going to go up to probably about 12,000 feet or so. We can dial in. Let's get rid of that again. See if we can get the cabin cooled down. Let's go to change our view here. You can see it's 94 degrees in the cabin right now. So hot, hot, hot. But we will get that cool vent blower. We'll put that on high. We'll see if that starts to cool it down a little bit. All right, so lots of things to do, lots of things modeled. We'll talk a little bit about that as we kind of get going. Let's get our 430 up and working. Oops, wrong button. Clear doesn't do it. And I will meet you out on the runway as we get ready to go, and I'll just kind of tell you what the overall plan is. And hopefully by that time, the interior of the cabin, that's already starting to drop down to 93. All right, so I will meet you out on the runway. See you in just a few seconds. Okay. What you guys didn't see is back for round 2 as I had a desktop crash right after we took off. All right, so the first thing we want to do is set our altitude. We'll come up here. And we'll set in 12,000 feet. If you click on it, we can get hundreds. The actual panel is located right down here. But to make things a little bit easier, you can actually click up here, which would be the annunciator panels. So we have heading dialed in, we have attitude, and I think at this point we are ready to go. So let's come down here, take off our brakes, and time 2. Let's do it. Careful not to make passing the exceedances, and we're looking for about 100 knots or so. Right about there. Bring the nose up. Let it fly off the runway.
Airborne time logged.
And positive rate. Gear is coming up. And let's pitch it a little bit lower there. About 10 degrees or so, 7.5 to 10 degrees. And from here, let's just hit autopilot. Keep us on heading. And then if we want, we can hit nav, which should bring us on our Poly 1 departure here. So let the aircraft do its own thing. I should have mentioned before, 0 flaps on takeoff. All right, so it looks like we're coming up on our turn here in just a second. There we go, starts the turn, and we are away. One thing I should have mentioned, I forgot to do this down here. We're going to want to, let's come down to here, and we need to have pitch. Where did I put it? Let's get rid of that. We'll leave prop sync off for now. Oh, pitch trim. Just want to make sure I put the pitch trim on right there. You want that pitch trim on because as we come down here, you can see this wheel moving. And it's going to try to pitch us for that initial kind of 10 degrees that we put in there. And then if we need to make any manual adjustments, we can actually click right here, up or down. For instance, let's say if our airspeed was decreasing too much, but best rate in this is 120 knots, best rate of climb. So go a little bit faster. We're coming up at 1,500 feet. We got a lot, and I mean a lot of power. So we're looking at manifold pressure, prop, fuel flow. Next to that, we see our temperatures and pressures for the engine. We're showing low cylinder temperature. Well, one of the things we can do on takeoff, we'll need to climb out here a little bit, is we're going to have to close those cowl flaps. I'm not sure if that low cylinder temperature is a reflection of the fact that on the second takeoff here, since I crashed the desktop, I just started directly to the runway, so I don't know if that may have messed with anything. We can see our battery temperature down there, cabin temperature once again. Just a phenomenally modeled aircraft. All right, as we're going through 5,000 feet or so, we could done a little bit earlier, we can just start to bring back a little bit of mixture. So we're going to lean here a little bit. You don't have to get crazy. Matter of fact, if we look up in the fuel flow, you'll see a couple numbers there. We got our takeoff, our 75% power, 65% power, and 55. So 75, we should be looking at about 150 on the pounds per hour. All right, on our way from Manchester City, where I used to live, with a buddy of mine. That was great fun. And we're heading up to Aberdeen, which I actually never made it up to Scotland my entire time I was in the UK. And I lived there on and off. I can't even tell you how many times. We can come down here, though I was just mentioning it earlier. Prop sync has to be off for takeoff and landing, but we are now climbing. And if you look right there at the RPM gauge, that little spinning cross at the bottom tells you how well the engines are synced up. And it's really kind of a big deal when you're flying twins. You can get this really weird throbbing vibration that's just really annoying. And the more that little cross, and I'll demonstrate it earlier maybe when we get up to altitude here, is not moving, the more the props are actually in sync with each other. Having two out of sync props is definitely annoying. All right, so that looks good. Head back here, we go over to the map. And now we have some general information. Still looking at an hour and 31 minutes en route, which obviously I will cut you out here in just a moment. That little blue magenta line is showing you there are top of climb, which is kind of interesting, very useful. All right, coming up on 10,000. Let's go ahead and make sure we leave our nav beacon on. And our taxi is off. So turn on, and our landing lights off. The only kind of bad thing on the cow flaps is, I'll start closing them now, is you have to hold it, but there is no visual representation. Oh, it's open, sorry. There is no visual representation of when they're open, fully open, or fully closed. So I have seen probably takes about 10 to 15 seconds to close them. All right, there's our 11,000 climbing 12 alert. Should be good. And the left. All right, so that should be closed up fairly good. The only way to really check is you'd have to go get into the external camera view. I don't think we need to do that currently. All right, so as you see here, that last 100 to 50 feet levels off, and now we can start to accelerate. So what kind of manifold pressures do you want to run? Well, really it's kind of up to you. We should probably pull back though, and you'll see our fuel flow. Sorry, we're getting that time of day. You'll see that fuel flow start to decrease. Bring it back to about 35 or so. Prop, same thing. Technically, really anywhere in the green, you're probably good, but we can just drop it back a little. And I'm just messing around with the little props right now, back and forth. You see, look at that. Look at the X out. See how it's spinning one way. If I pull one back a lot, see it really starts to spin. We've got prop sync on, so it's going to try to hold it a little bit. That's probably good right about there. And now the props are synced up. All right, so we are level here at 12,000 feet. And we will be planning on doing the ILS into Aberdeen here in just a little bit. So we have a little bit of a flight to go, and I think I'll cut you out now, and I'll bring you in on the descent. All right, see you in just a few seconds. Okay, I'm back with you. I was just checking out some of the departure footage en route here, and I see that my Volanta tracking software, OBS has picked it up, but Volanta hasn't picked up this flight. So hopefully we'll get that sorted out. And so we actually can have some great flight information on the way up. All right, so I wanted to show you how we start our descent. So I've pre-selected 2,500 feet, which is our final altitude. So you select 2,500, then you want to come up to the autopilot, select attitude, come down to the panel down here, and then we want to hit pitch, and you need very, very small movements here. So I'm just going to click it once, twice, and we'll see that should give us a nice descent rate, about 500-600 feet a minute or so. So about 2 clicks. So do not really push that pitch down. I learned the hard way after I had what I thought was a fairly small movement come down about 4,000 feet per minute. So, all right, so just real quickly, we've got, for the brief here, we're looking at a localizer frequency of 109.9. That is set on the main and standby. Final approach course of 159. That is set on the CDI, and I have my heading set for that. We'll talk about that later. Final approach fix is going to be 2,500 feet. We've got that just set, and the decision altitude will be 405 feet on the baro or 200 on the radar altimeter, and that is set as well. Airport elevation's 215 feet, so I want to be fully configured by approximately 1,200 feet, and what that means is going to be gear down, full flaps, and no more than probably about, say, 10 knots or so plus, and -5 knots on the speed, so we're nice and stable. In the event of a misapproach, which doesn't look like we're going to get now, and quite frankly, let me look at my fuel. We've got no fuel for the misapproach. The pressure's on, but it would be climb straight ahead to 3,000, then as directed. And just checking on the plan view, no notes on here other than there's some moderate to severe turbulence and wind shear may be experienced on approaches to all runways when the wind exceeds 15 knots. Gotta love Scotland, apparently. And nothing on there. Looks like the highest obstacle, we got a couple towers just right to the south and southwest of the center line. That shouldn't be a factor, hopefully. Plan view, final approach fix, once again, 2,500 feet, which is DME 7.1 from the localizer. And coming down, we're going to plan around, eventually around between 120 to 100 knots or so. So we're going to need a descent rate probably around anywhere from probably about 550 to 650 or so, right in that ballpark should do it for us. And it looks like it's going to be just a typical 3-degree glide path. All right, so we don't need anything else from there. Let's zoom in a bit here. I love being able to move this chart around. Actually, we can probably just leave that up. So we're heading direct for Aberdeen, which is the initial approach fix. And then from Aberdeen, we still have a couple more miles, but we can. So we're going 55, so we got another 2,000 feet to go. Let's come back down to the descent rate, and we'll just give it one more click down. Increase that descent rate a little bit. And one more time, let's go down about 1,000 feet. I want to give us another click or so. There we go. Increase our mixture just a little bit, and I'm going to keep my track IR. Once again, it's that time of the day where things start getting a little bit wonky, and let's not crash here the last couple minutes. Also going to start, we're getting a little bit closer to Aberdeen here. Start slowing down a little bit. So it's about 174 knots, I think, for the first notch of flaps and or gear. All right, so we're coming up over Aberdeen now. We're going to let the computer do that for us. Keep pulling out a little bit more power. Right out. All right, 1,000 to go. Need that anymore. Let's go ahead and put in our first notch of flaps. I'm interested to see how this computer picks it up. Or will it? All right, so it's going to bring us back in towards the course. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put us into heading mode. So get that straight ahead. Let's click heading. Let's switch over to VLOC. And now we're going to want approach. I think, oh, there's our runway right there. So it did give us the right turn. So let's go ahead and take the autopilot off. Let's throw our gear down. We'll still use the ILS. We're just not going to get proper glide slope out of it. There's the airport right there. I guess for the nav, it was a little bit too sharp of a turn. But there's our runway right there. We've got white over white, so we're still a little bit high. Speed looks good. Just trim it out a little bit more. I think we can make this work. Yeah, I saw it kind of went right over the top of the initial approach fix, and it made us circle back towards the runway and put us on a heading to intercept the localizer. What it didn't do is make it in time so we'd have a proper intercept. But when in doubt, just kick off the autopilot and do some pilot stuff. All right. Red over white, right on profile. Actually, we look down at the HSI, we can see that we are on glide slope, and as we make our slight little adjustment here, we are on the localizer. Perfect. Right, airspeed's 100 knots. Vertical descent rate is okay. Shallow it out a little bit, that's all right. But just a little bit of power here. Right at 100. Round out our flare. Probably pulled that a little bit high. Not on the center line either, like an asshole.
Landing time logged.
Eventually bring us over. Great landing! Oh, you didn't think I'd get away? Oh, that is a runway. All right. That was some sort of taxiway. We'll get a little off-road in here on this very, very small taxiway. All right, let's see how we did here. Let's go ahead and pull the parking brake. And
Engine off time logged.
power.
The flight is finished. It has been monitored by OnAir.
All right, so there is some of our statistics. Safety handling not achieved. I don't know why. Oh, engine already on tracking. Yep, because the aircraft crashed. All right, so let's come back up to our main page. Let's go to our dashboard and show legs. Okay, so we see we've completed the first leg. It's now in green. The next leg coming up is purple, and our 3 others that are scheduled are in the light blue. And if we come back out again, you will see we've gained our 10 experience points. So the goal here is to make sure we complete all 5 legs before the time expires. And then we will, instead of having 50 points, we will have 100, and we'll be halfway to leveling up from trainee. All right. So we did a lot of talking. I think this plane is going to be really good for us. There's a lot of things for us to learn, including myself. And I'm excited to fly this over the next several episodes. So once again, I appreciate all the support. Please leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care for now.